football fans? I'm Tim, and this is Answer the Call podcast. Joining me live at the press box, it's Shovicks Sports. I have Corey and Austin joining me today. Thanks for joining me, fellas.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. We've been listening to each other's podcasts over the last few weeks or so. I really like what you guys have to offer, and I got to say, I'm excited to have you on the show and hear your guys' takes on some of these topics today. Guys, we are live on Facebook and YouTube, and you can also find the episode later on Spotify. Answer the Call, COLL. I've got the 2 minute call. It's kind of a new segment I just came up with today. I'm kind of excited. It's a little bit of the headlines around the news, and we're going to get started with the first one. Commanders hire Wes Welker, probably as a wide receiver coach. I think that's a good move, fellas.
Yeah, no, I really do. And being a Broncos fan, I'm really familiar with Wes Welker and his time in Denver and kind of what he was able to do, taking some of the younger guys under his wing. So again, when you put him with the likes of, Terry McLaurin, some of those other guys that they have, he's going to just do nothing but benefit Jaden Daniels and what that offense is able to do.
Yeah, I mean, being able to teach some of these younger guys some of Wes Welker was a technique guy, footwork, quick in and outs. So to just, be able to provide that in Washington, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, Wes Welker was one of those slot receivers that just kind of took over the game and didn't really, nobody really projected him. And he's won Super Bowls. So he brings definitely that veteran leadership and presence as a wide receiver coach. And it could help a young wide receiver core that can ultimately help Jaden Daniels, like you guys said. So well said. Next up is the Atlanta Falcons have reached out to the New York Football Jets to swap picks. Falcons want to go from 15 to 7 in the draft. And I'm being told that their target would be Jalen Walker, linebacker from Georgia. And I don't know, like, is that their biggest need? Maybe. But what are you going to have to give up to go from 15 to 7?
Yeah, making a move into the top 10. I mean, you're easily going to have to give up that 15 pick uh, and some extra draft capital, but I think the Falcons have proven that if they have a guy they like, they're going to get him. I mean, no one saw him taking a quarterback in the first round, but it was their guy, so they took him. So if it's their guy, I don't think the cost is going to matter to Atlanta. So, uh, you know, kind of that pass rushing, athletic linebacker, that's kind of been the downfall of their defense for some years now. So if that's their guy, I think they're going to be all in on getting him.
Yeah, and you look at what their defense has been over the last few years. They've lacked pass rushing, right? So then they go out and they get Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons. So now their defense is kind of pieced together. Now what's missing? A good young linebacker, guy who can kind of command. It is a big loss losing Grady Jarrett to the Bears. So maybe they need to look. That's not just a guy you can replace, right? So there's other things that they can do, but I mean, if they have their eyes set on a linebacker, I don't think that would be too much of a reach, and I actually think he would fit in really well with Raheem Morris and what he's trying to do with that defense.
Okay. Well, Atlanta does need help on the defense. I gotta say, I kind of wish they would just trade or draft Tyler Warren and be done with Kyle Pitts. And from a fantasy
Yeah,
aspect, I
Yeah.
have wasted so much time. I even said on an earlier podcast I would trade Kyle Pitts in fantasy football for a Big Mac and a small fry. So I would like to see Tyler Warren, but the defense is definitely a need. And Jalen Walker, he came from Georgia, and the Georgia defense is proven that they can go into the NFL and dominate. Just look at the Philadelphia Eagles. So I do like the move. We'll have to see if they want to get crazy on draft night or if they want to just kind of see who falls. But speaking of the Jets head coach Aaron Glenn wants to shift to a running back committee. And what does that mean for Brees Hall? Brees Hall's in a contract year, and I feel like he could really benefit from going somewhere else. Now, I'm not sure what that would entail. Maybe maybe the Lions want to get crazy. Not the Lions, maybe the Bears want to get crazy and offer up maybe a third and a fifth round pick, or maybe a third and DeAndre Swift to go out and get Brees Hall. Maybe he goes somewhere else. If he stays in New York, I feel like his value is going to plummet a little bit in a contract year, and I feel like he could really benefit from a new scenario.
Yeah, and teams are reluctant to pay running backs anymore, right? So um, I bet there's a cost where you could get Brees Hall. I look at a team like Denver. Um, Sean Payton likes his running backs. They're still
Mhm.
looking for one. Uh, and the Jets on their roster, they had Braylon Allen, and then they had that guy late in the year. Um, I forget his name, but it was that receiving running back. So, even if they got rid of Brees Hall, they'd still have a pretty good 1-2 punch while getting some draft capital and saving money at that position. So, uh, that would be an interesting watch. It is the Jets. Typically, let good players just go. I think Brees Hall's a hell of a player, uh, which is why he probably doesn't belong on the Jets. But yeah, that'd be a curious one to see where he would go because I think there'd be plenty of suitors to line up for a guy like him.
And I feel like if they're trading Brees Hall and his caliber, that means they think they're going to get Ashton Genty. There's no other reason why you would trade Brees Hall, because yes, Braylon Allen, and yes, but I was reading some scenarios where it was a Denver fan page and they had asked if Denver fans would be upset if Brees Hall ended up in Denver. I don't think you're going to have to give up a first round pick for Brees Hall since it is a contract year. So I wouldn't be upset if that meant Denver could actually take, you know, something with that 20th pick that's not a running back. And I think you'd be able to plug in Brees Hall there. You brought up the Bears. I actually that's an interesting team, just based on I think a running back like that would help Caleb Williams. What's the young quarterback's best friend? A run game. Bears, they need a running back, and they're not in that area where they're guaranteed to have a chance at for Ashton Genty. So you bring up a good point, and I do kind of like the Bears as a possible landing spot if they were to move on from Brees Hall.
Okay. Well, it's that wonderful time where anything can happen. The draft is right around the corner. Teams are going to get crazy and they're going to make some trades, I feel like. And I wouldn't be shocked to see Brees Hall dealt on draft night, and maybe he gets dealt shortly after the draft. So, all right, the last one in this little 2 minute call, Jalen Milrow has accepted the invitation to attend the 2025 NFL draft. Now, he had impressive private sessions with Saints and the Browns. And I got to say, he's a name I've been hearing that could go in that first round, maybe to the Steelers at 21, but maybe a team like the Saints or the Browns want to take him right there at the top of the second round, or trade with, Kansas City or Philadelphia right there at the back end so they get that fifth year option. I I wasn't as big on Jalen Milrow as I am now after seeing his pro day, after seeing what he can really do. He's not just, he doesn't have just a strong arm. He can run the ball. And I think I would like to see him not go to Cleveland because, let's face it, if you go to Cleveland, your career is done.
Yeah,
What do you
and
think, Corey
there's
or Austin?
yeah, no, it's one of those things where um I'm sorry, we were reading the chat real quick, um and just seeing. Oh, yeah, that'd be good to let us know how the audio's going. We can still hear you and everything's going fine. So I think you want to take that real quick.
Yeah, Jalen Milrow would be a sneaky, a sneaky one to kind of creep up in the first round. You've heard Ward and Sanders, a little bit of Jackson Dart, but if he starts sneaking up, that'd be surprising to me. I think your scenario of one of those teams trading up late first round is more likely than him kind of going kind of high in the draft. Yeah, if you can get a quarterback you like with that fifth year option, that's worth a little bit, right? So you kind of hope the draft falls in a way to where, maybe there's not that offensive tackle the Chiefs want, so they are a trade back option. Um, I like what Jalen Milrow has to offer. He's definitely one who needs to go to a friendly situation. We've talked about it a lot. Situations matter. Um, and I think with him more than anything, right? Like his pure talent isn't going to carry a team, but in the right spot, I think he could be a good quarterback.
Yeah, I don't like him as much with the Steelers, but I do think the Saints could be a landing spot just because the SEC country they're familiar and he's familiar with the area. So I think the Steelers may be doing a smokescreen on that. So again, that's the time of year, right, where you never know what you're going to believe or hear. But yeah, the Steelers, I'm not quite buying into that. I still think the Steelers would prefer Jackson Dart over Milrow. So I think the
Okay.
Saints there, but possibly the Browns in the second round as that first pick.
All right, guys, that was the 2 minute call. Now, it did last a little bit longer than 2 minutes,
Yeah.
but this was the opening segment. Now it is time for the first call, and it is time to get really into a good conversation. And first up, we have Julio Jones officially retires from the NFL. What a great career this man had, guys. Now, the last 2 to 3 years, he played. It was a little rough, but Jones played in 166 games, 914 catches, 13,703 yards with 66 touchdowns. He also had a surprising 24 carries for 163 yards. Didn't even know he
Hmm.
ran the ball, but he did. I feel bad for him that he never got to win a Super Bowl in his career. Now, my question is, and it's probably an obvious answer, is should he be in the Hall of Fame? And if so, will he be a first ballot Hall of Fame? And Corey, let's get started with you first.
Yeah, I think he is. And you're right. It does suck that he wasn't able to get that ring. I really thought that Falcons group was going to be able to pull that one off. Obviously, uh, the 28-3 game. But yeah, I mean, you look at his stats. I think anyone who's able to get over 13,000 receiving yards, I think you know find me a receiver who was more consistent than him. I know there was injuries there, kind of towards his back end of the Falcons career, but I mean, you can pull up the stats right here, and I mean, you can just see it. I mean, 136 receptions, or yeah, on 204 targets. Yeah, it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I think he's a surefire, no brainer, first ballot Hall of Famer. Um, I don't think the lack of Super Bowl rings kind of hurts his case at all. I think that's more of that'll hurt a quarterback maybe a little bit, but you put up those numbers and be as dominant as he was for so long. Uh, I'd be really surprised if he wasn't just high percentage of votes that first year to get in. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. Yeah, I do have to say with the quarterback, it is, oh, how many Super Bowls? But I mean, let's face it. Let's look at Dan Marino, and
Hmm.
he didn't have any Super Bowl rings. He's a Hall of Famer. Philip Rivers is another quarterback. Wide receivers, I mean, look at them. I mean, we're seeing wide receivers not put up nearly the numbers that he has put up, and they're in the Hall of Fame. So if he isn't a first ballot Hall of Fame, I think many people, especially Falcon fans and fans of Julio Jones over his career, I feel like they're going to riot because you know he's had a legendary career, and I think if he would have went to the right team at the end of his career, he would have had the Super Bowl, and we could have been talking about maybe 15,000 yards receiving versus the 13,000. So I definitely think that he has the potential and definitely should be first ballot Hall of Fame. And I don't know, it kind of seems like the NFL just allows anybody in the Hall of Fame sometimes because not dogging any players, but I have definitely seen players and they didn't produce nearly as well as I feel that they should for a Hall of Fame. Because when I think Hall of Fame, I don't really think like the team aspect. You're thinking Hall of Fame like, oh, what did he do individually? And Julio versus, I mean, he's probably top five all time in receiving. So I he's got to be in there. If he's not, I'm going to be really, really mad, and I'm sure a lot of fans will be too. Hey, I
Yeah,
actually
no,
have to
it.
tell you
Oh,
guys a funny story real quick. So in fantasy football, I don't know if you guys play fantasy football, but um, I did a dynasty back when it was prime Julio Jones, and I had Julio Jones, and I think I had Melvin Gordon as my running back, and I traded with a buddy of mine, and I got DeAndre Hopkins and Jordan Howard, and that was the year that Jordan Howard just absolutely was a monster for that 1 year. And everybody in my league was like, "Oh, you're stupid. Why would you trade Julio?" And then I got DeAndre, and it was a dynasty, and I got a young DeAndre Hopkins, and I went on to win back to back, fantasy championships. Didn't lose a game in 2 years, and I was like, "Hey, how did that trade work out for me?" But Julio, I love the man. He's definitely a Hall of Famer. If you guys don't have anything else, I've got the next topic right here ready to go.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, guys. Is Roger Goodell corrupt? I think he is. In this story, this little headline, you might think so too. So, Roger Goodell was rumored to have asked the Packers to propose a tush push ban. Packers retiring president and CEO Mark Murphy was asked whether the Packers proposed the tush push ban at the behest of the NFL. He responded by saying, "We're always in touch with the league." Now, it has also been reported that the proposal's language is being adjusted so that it has a stronger chance to pass when reissued in May. I'm going to get your guys' thoughts on that, and then I have a little bit more to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your first question, I absolutely would. Roger Goodell is probably corrupt in way more ways than just this. Um, I I'd be hard to find out if he's behind the tush push one or not. I guess if you're gonna ask someone, just ask a random team from the north to just do your dirty work for you. So it wouldn't surprise me. Um, I also feel like if Roger Goodell didn't want the tush push, he would just outlaw it. He wouldn't even ask people. I just feel like that's kind of the person he is. Uh, it's definitely a story. I'm curious to see what all comes out, about it over time. Because if that's true, then like that's a serious problem, right? You can't just go to teams and ask them to do this your bidding for you as the commissioner, right?
I
Like
feel like if that's true, then he needs to be out as commish like yesterday.
100%.
absolutely. That's a problem.
Okay, so this last little part here, it says it appears that Roger Goodell may have asked Mark Murphy to do him a favor on his way out, having the Packers be the face of the tush push ban with no billionaire owner, and maybe even as a favor owed for the NFL draft being held in Green Bay this year.
Hmm.
And conspiracy theories are strong these days, anyways. So
Oh yeah.
you know, I could see it. I mean, this is the one team that doesn't have the full ownership, where they're like it's shares, right? Like they don't have that one person.
Right.
It's
They
not
don't
like
have
Jerry
like
Jones is coming
an
out.
owner per se.
Exactly. So it's not like Jerry Jones is coming out to say, "Hey, we want to ban the tush push." No, it's like, "Hey, scratch our back, I'll scratch yours." So I mean, it's
Right.
too good. It's like the dots kind of are there, and the pieces are lining up to be. But I agree. If that is the case, and he is kind of the face behind this to kind of push it along. No pun intended. But yeah, he should be out, and I think they should move on with it because again, you have a rules committee for a reason. You're the commissioner. I get it, but at the same time, like let the teams decide.
Austin, do you have anything else you want to add real quick or
Yeah, I just personal opinion, I'd be surprised if he did actually have anything to do with it. Um, I'd like to think he has a little integrity and he knows you can't get away with anything these days, right? Like stuff comes out, but like personal opinion, I would bet he didn't. It's just a lot of dots can line up to it, right? Like you said, the NFL draft there, like that guy on his way out, like scratch our back, we scratch yours. So like
right?
things can add up to make it seem like there's some potential there. Uh, we're not insiders, so we have no knowledge of any of that. But like, I would be surprised if he truly had something to do with it.
Yeah, and this time of year, the off season, like you really just got to kind of take news with a grain of salt. It doesn't matter even if it's Ian Rappaport or Adam Scheffner or any other of the major NFL you know reporters. But if it does, then like I said, he needs out like yesterday, and this will kind of affect the league. And just so you guys are aware, if you've missed any episode, I am hashtag don't ban the tush push.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're the
That's
same.
that's where we're at.
Whether you're a fan of it or not, it's a play. You can't ban a play. You open doors, and yeah, we're with you.
I think I actually heard you guys talking about that on your guys' show the other day. You can't ban this because it will open that door for so many more to be banned. Well, you can't do this play, and you're taken away from the game.
Hmm.
And if anybody's listened to the last episode or the last two episodes that I've done, it, okay, so essentially it's no different than the running back getting to the line of scrimmage and the tight end pushing him. It's no different than that. It's no different than a team running a trick play, say like a reverse or a flea flicker or a halfback pass of that nature. So I'm hashtag don't ban the tush push. And I actually had a fan comment on the last episode, and he said, "Let the boys push the tush." So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the only thing I said to it is because I'm a defensive guy. I like defense. I wouldn't ban the play, but I'd make variations because, like, on defense, you can't push your players.
right,
So, like, make it even. Don't ban the play. Make alterations and make the rules a little similar. So, like,
make
on
it
tush
where the
pushes,
defense could push on that side.
y- yeah, let our linebackers push the linemen, or let us do the tush push from our side. Because I agree,
Right,
you can't ban the play, but make it variation so it's a little more fair. You have a little more options to stop it,
I like
right?
that.
So, yeah, I agree. Don't ban it, but you can alter things a little bit to make it a little more fair.
I like it. I like it. All right, so Corey, you said you're a Broncos fan,
Yes, sir.
and
That's me.
Austin is a Chiefs fan.
I sure am. Yep.
Yeah.
Little AFC hatred going on here. Real quick before we get into talk about Shedeur Sanders, I want to hear your thought, Austin, on who the Chiefs should take with the 31st pick. What would be the ideal pick to help them maybe get over that hump? Watching the Super Bowl, I got to say they would probably want to go offensive line because Philadelphia had their way with them. So I want to hear your thoughts, and then Corey, I'll see what you think about the Broncos.
Yeah, I think the obvious obvious choice would be offensive line, right? But as I just mentioned, I'm a defensive guy. We went out and spent $30 million to try to fix a left tackle. So let's not waste a first round pick on something we wasted money on. Uh, I think we need a lot of defensive line help because if you also watch the Super Bowl, their offensive line had their way with our defensive line. Uh, Chris Jones, he's getting a little older and he's never really had true interior help. As I think Mike Dana and George Karlaftis on the edge, like they're good, but neither one of them are elite. So my pick would actually be, and again, we don't know who's going to be there, but just looking at mock drafts and stuff, I like Derek Carmen from Oregon, the D tackle, and then I've seen some where James Pierce and Nick Scorton, the edge rushers, have fallen. So I'm picking one of those interior D line elite pass rushers if they fall. Uh, just because we spent money on the offensive line, right? We tagged Trey Smith. We gave Jalen Moore or whatever his name is a contract for left tackle. We have draft capital with like Wanya Morris and the Kingsley Suamatua guy for left guard, like to try to salvage those draft picks already for left guard options. So um, they'll get offensive line. I would prefer middle rounds, but that first round, I'd get some D line help for what you said, so they can kind of become like the Eagles. Because Chiefs D line did nothing. They impacted the game zero, and that's also like it's an important part. Your defensive line has to cause havoc.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and then for Denver, it's still Luther Burden for me. Um, I know that there's a lot saying Omarion Hampton, the running back. I'm just not sold quite yet on running backs in the first round, especially with it being as deep as it is. Right? You can get any kind of running back in the top three, maybe even four rounds, and be just fine and better than what Denver's had. Right? And that's nothing against Javante, but at the same time, I need more weapons for Bo. Right? Our defense is good. Good signings at free agency. Bring in Evan Ingram because I don't think Tyler Warren's going to make it that far. Ideally, that's my pick. I wanted Tyler Warren back in the postseason when we were talking first about who maybe a dream pick would be. Tyler Warren was it, but I don't think he's going to make it. So I'm standing firm right now with Luther Burden. But if you ask me again in a week or 2 weeks, I might be able to jump on the Marion Hampton bandwagon.
It's really interesting that you said Tyler Warren, and I don't think that he makes it that far either. But in a scenario, what if Sean Payton is like, hey, we're one big playmaker away from being serious contenders in the AFC West, and let's go get that playmaker and trading up. How far do you think the Broncos would have to trade up to get a Tyler Warren if they wanted to go that route?
Yeah, I think it would have to be in that 10 to 12 range. There's too many teams in there in that vicinity that is going to need a tight end. I kind of like what you were saying at the beginning with the Jets. Um, I don't know if the Jets would be willing to trade back with Denver, even though Denver's assistant GM's now the GM with the Jets, so there's some familiarity there. So maybe it's like a hey young man, and help us out. Let us let's swap. But I still think it's that 10 to 12 range. And even then, I'm not sure I want to do that because you're going to have to give up a little bit more than just that 20th.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I
and
think the farthest he falls would be the Colts. I think at 14, there's a 100% chance if he's there that to the Colts take, plain and simple. Um, so I think best case they would have to move up to 14. So
Okay,
like that's still a little bit of capital there.
right. I gotta say, okay, out of everybody in the AFC West, I hate the Broncos the least. I don't want to see Luther Burden go. I don't want to see Tyler Warren go. I don't want to see Omarion Hampton go. Because I watched a lot of Luther Burden in college. I'm a Hogs fan. Well, I'm an adopted Hogs fan via my fiance's family. But like I'm right here. I grew up, in Joplin, Missouri, right down the road from you guys. And watching Luther Burton at Missouri, watching what he did in the SEC. The kid can play ball, and I gotta say, I'm not really big on Amari Hampton going because I'm going to try to draft him in fantasy drafts, and like, man, I don't want him to put up big numbers against the Chargers, and because in that sense, I'm going to be like, nope, sorry, my Chargers have to win. So, ideally, I think the Broncos could go get Amika Ibuka, a big body
yeah,
wide receiver. Luther Burden would be a good choice, and I don't see a scenario where both of those wide receivers and Hampton aren't there for the Broncos. So it really looks, and if they are for whatever freakish reason, they could just go get tight end Colson Leveland from Michigan. And I hope they don't go that route either. But those are all great options for the Chiefs. I feel like I don't know. I feel like you got to go offensive line. There's not a whole lot that they need. Their corners are good. Their safeties are okay. Their linebackers, I feel like they brought back their linebackers. I just feel like offensive tackle, offensive guard, maybe get somebody, maybe like a Donovan Jackson, who
mhm.
has experience playing tackle, but he's a guard, so kind of help replace Joe Thuney. And then if he's needed on the outside, he could bounce to the outside. I will go ahead and answer for the Chargers. I I really kind of like. I really want Amika Ibuka. I really want Colston Loveland. I really want Amarian Hampton. But a couple episodes ago, I did a 7 round mock draft for the Chargers, and I said I would really like to see him go get an edge rusher, like maybe Donovan Azuruka from
Hmm.
Boston College, or I doubt Mikael Williams is there at 22. But and edge rusher is not a need for the Chargers, but learn from Khalil Mack, and then you have the two young studs. You'd have two young edge rushers to help solidify that defense for years to come. And I don't know. They brought back Mike Williams. But obviously, he's washed up. They're thinking about bringing back Keenan Allen. I would like Abuka, just because he's a big body receiver. He can play slot or on the outside. It's hard to tell. I mean, maybe Harbaugh is aggressive and trades up for the guy that he wants. I don't know. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
And I wouldn't sleep on maybe Loveland there to if he's there. Familiarity with
Oh,
Harbaugh.
yeah,
So,
Harbaugh guy.
I know he's done a really nice job of not like overly grabbing Michigan players, right? So this is one though that this this is one that I think if he's there or maybe even within reach, he may say, "Hey, this is going to help Justin Herbert out," and say we should go make this move. We have Lad. We brought back Mike Williams. We may get Keenan Allen. Quentin Johnson is still up in the air on him, right? Like you don't know what
Let's
you're going
not
to get.
let's not put him in the conversation, Mister. I can't catch a freaking ball if my life depended on it. I I
But
am
yes,
so
I would
aggravated.
not. Don't sleep on Loveland though. I think if he's in within reach, I
Wow,
think Harbaugh. That is one guy Harbaugh will be aggressive for.
And what's
Harbaugh is.
your
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, what's your corner situation look right? Like, I know Chiefs got Fulton, and I think Samuel's still a free agent, right? So like,
Yeah,
that
Asante
could be a
Samuel
pretty
is
big
still a
need.
free agent. He was a really bad locker room presence last season, and we're young at corner. We got Cam Hart, we got this other young corner that we drafted last year, and then there's a veteran. We could go corner, and it could be very well that'd be the route that we go, like maybe someone like Maxwell Harrison or a Trey Omos,
Hmm.
Mhm.
just to kind of get in there and really just help bolster the secondary with Derwin James at safety. That could be an option. I do got to say the Loveland pick would be probably my. If I had to pick out of all that, I would probably want Loveland. He's a Harbaugh guy, the big tight end at Michigan, comes in, helps Herbert. And now thinking about it, there's a lot of wide receivers that you can get in rounds 2, 3, 4. Someone like Jaden Higgins, his teammate Jalen Noel, Jack Beck. Some of these names that maybe not a lot of people are hearing, but you can go get these guys in rounds 2, 3, 4. You could bolster either secondary or the tight end position in round one. So
Yeah, as a Chiefs fan, I don't want y'all to get Loveland. I know you guys are big Tyler Warren fans, but Loveland's been my favorite one from day one in this draft. I kept telling my brother some mocks had Denver getting him. And he was like, "Man, I want Tyler Warren." And I'm like, "Dude, I love Loveland. Like, if somehow the Chiefs could get him to sit behind Kels for a year or two and then he take
uh,
over, that would
oh,
be my dream scenario because I
do
absolutely
not,
love the
do not
guy."
wish, do not put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
No, no, no.
Do not put that
But
evil
I
on
I
me.
think I think a perfect draft for the Chargers, and I'm gonna put my own bias aside because I don't want the Chargers to get him, but I think the draft could fall this way. I think if you get Loveland round one, if your next draft pick you get Trey Harris, that's my sleeper receiver from Ole Miss. I think
Okay.
that dude's not getting enough love. I think he complements the big receivers you have, Lad in the slot. Trey Harris would just be a baller for Herbert. And then
Okay.
I think third round, you just get any of these running backs like Ollie Gordon, Devin Neal, like any of running backs are deep. So I think if you get knock those three spots out for Herbert, you're looking at a really good offense turning elite like that.
I will say, my sleeper running back, and not a lot of people are very high on him. We just got Najee Harris in free agency. He's that big bruiser, kind of right there on the goal line is just going to plow it in. But I'm going to tell you, like, a change of pace, like, that could come in and, in the middle of the field from the 30 to the 20-yard line is Bayshaw Tootin out of Virginia Tech. He ran a 4.32 40 in the combine.
Yep.
He can catch out of the backfield. I have been big on him since college. And if there's a way that the Chargers could grab him in round 2 or 3, with Levelin in round 1, oh, man, I would absolutely love that. So,
Yeah, because Harbaugh, no matter what you give him defensively, his defense is going to be all right.
right,
Like,
yeah,
that's
Justin
just how it's
Leonard
going to
is a
be.
great coordinator, and he can make anything. So, still a couple of weeks away, unfortunately. It's only April 8th as of right now, and we still got 2 weeks and 2 days until round 1 of the draft, so anything can happen. I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on your team before the draft. So we have one last topic to talk about, and it's kind of a big one, and he's been making a big headline in the news due to his last name. It's time for the last call. Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders had a very impressive pro day. I don't know if you guys got to watch it, but I watched his pro day, and if there was any doubt that he can't play quarterback in the NFL, he erased some of that at the pro day. He was making really good throws, and what people don't realize is Shedeur Sanders is very accurate. He's not going to beat you with his arm. He's not the strongest arm in this class or, in recent memory, but he is deadly accurate, and he can really pick apart the defense. And I don't want to say it because, it's still way too early in his career, but he has the accuracy of a great that, he won 7 Super Bowls. He is as accurate as Tom Brady. When I watch him read now, his problem is he does take a lot more sacks but maybe that was because Colorado's offensive line was trash and he didn't have time to throw. I got to say, he is really accurate. Now, one thing I want to point out before I get your guys' intakes on this is James Palmer thinks Sanders could slide if not taken in the top 3. So let's say he isn't taken in the top 3 picks. How far do you think he slides? And what team will draft him? As well as, do you think he should be a first-round pick?
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. I'm not a big Shedeur Sanders fan, or lover, I guess I should say. I don't have anything against him personally, but um, I don't think he goes top 3 for the simple fact that I think once Titans take their quarterback, Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter have to come off the board. Like, they have to. Um, I think he's another one of the scenarios that we kind of played out with Jalen Milroe. I think he could slide to round 2, but you have the option where a team might trade back up in to the end of the first round. Um,
For that 5th-year option.
it's hard to know how teams feel about him, but he's another one who needs to go to a system, right? If he goes to a team, like the Colts, how Colts handled Anthony Richardson, like if Shedeur Sanders goes to a situation like that, he's kind of off on the wrong foot already. But if he can go somewhere that's stable and, like a Niners, if they don't want to pay Brock Purdy, bring in Sanders and run an extremely friendly offense, I think he'd be okay. But if I had to guess, I think the Browns trade back into end of round 1 to get him.
Ooh. So you think they take Travis Hunter number 2 and then trade back and get Shedeur?
That Look, that'd be. It doesn't sound like a Browns thing to do because you'd be sitting there pretty happy for the Browns, which kind of seems unusual. But um, I think so. I think if the Browns can just figure out a way to do something right, if they can walk away with those 2 picks, I think you'd be pretty happy as a Browns fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm I'm torn on it. I do think as a talent he's there, but I don't know up here if he's quite there for the spotlight. Like you're getting ready to have the keys to a franchise, right? Like his dad was in the spotlight. His dad obviously answered those calls. He was able to turn himself into a superstar coming into the league. I don't think he'll make it to the second round. I still think he is a first round pick. I do think maybe the Saints. I don't know. The Steelers are the team that I'm still having a hard read on. They're keeping things close. They're not letting much get out. They had the meeting with Dart. They did the thing with Milrow. Do they maybe possibly try to get a run at Sanders? Do they trade up to get him, or you know the Cowboys? Maybe the Cowboys surprised everybody at 12.
Ooh.
I don't know, but again, it makes it fun, right? Because it's that time of year you just don't know. I don't like him in the top 5. I don't, but I do still think he is. I do think he is the top first half of the first round kind of quarterback.
I would go on to say that no quarterback in this class is really worth the top 5. I don't even think Cam
Yep.
Ward.
Nope.
Honestly, if I was the Titans, I know this sounds crazy. I would draft Travis Hunter and then try to see
Absolutely.
Will Levis, put some pieces around him because even if you go get Cam Ward, you've got to now draft offense, because that Titans offense is just garbage. Now, I do want to say the Steelers are really kind of intriguing because we don't know if they're going to sign Aaron Rodgers. What's
Right.
he going to do? You know, is he going to sign with the team? Is he not? I know he was waiting to see if the Vikings were interested in him. They don't want him. And honestly, if I was the Steelers, I wouldn't want him either. But that's just me. I'm not big on Aaron Rodgers these days. I think he just needs to go right into the sunset, go to a darkness retreat, stay in the darkness retreat forever, and never be on social media again. But even if he signs, like, do you want to draft Shedeur Sanders to sit behind Aaron Rodgers, which Aaron says he has, maybe 2, 3 more years, and all that's going to do is just kind of like another Green Bay situation, and he's just going to become a bad locker room. A team that I think could get interesting is the Saints. If he doesn't go in the top 3, which I don't think he should, he could be taken to the Saints. Kellen Moore could be like, Derek Carr is getting to be at the end of his contract, and maybe we take a chance on Shedeur. His dad came out and said that he would love to see him play as the Saints. He loves the city, loves the food, loves the colors, or whatever he said. But the Saints could be a really intriguing one because, they have Chris Olave at wide receiver. They have Alvin Kamara at running back. They could go get a tight end or so in the draft in rounds 2 or 3. And all of a sudden, this offense would be a lot better than what it was last season. And obviously, Derek Carr is not the answer. And I think after this season, they could really get out of his contract without having to pay him as much. And I don't know, the big easy, like Shedeur Sanders. The Saints are a big market. Sanders' name is a big market. I know a lot of Saints fans may not like that, but you got to start thinking. You got to put your personal opinions about him, like him as a player, kind of aside. And what is he doing on the field? Like, is he staying out of trouble? Is he being a good locker room leader? Is he turning your franchise around? And if the answer is yes to all that, then it doesn't matter who your guy is. Just like the Tennessee Titans, it doesn't really matter, about Will Levis. If he's checking the boxes, then that's your guy. So I think I'd like to see the Saints take a crack at it. If he doesn't go there, I don't see him going till maybe 20 to 26 range or 28 range. Maybe a team, like the Browns do trade up at that back end of that first round. So I don't know. It's going to get interesting. Like, he has that Aaron Rodgers where, he's projected to be in the top 10, but could slide all the way to like 24. So,
Yeah, and one last thing on Shador. Again, this has nothing to do with his talent because I did get a chance to see some of the pro day. Were the mechanics off a little bit on certain things? Yes, but that could be coached up. He'll get that corrected if he's in the right system with the right coaches. But he was spot on with some of his accuracy, the familiarity with his receivers at Colorado did help, which that also helped some of their draft stock as well. So again, if he gets into the right system with the right coaching, I don't think he makes an immediate impact right away, which is why I think he should go to a team that he maybe does sit for a year just to get an idea of, hey, this is how it should look, right? Yes, you can do so many things at Colorado. You can have all the NFL guys coming to your games, to your practices, the retired guys, uh, the all-star coaching staff that Dion's put together at Colorado. But at the end of the day, is your head there for the right reasons? And are you willing to be coached by someone who isn't your father?
That is really those are all really good points. And real quick, you threw out the Dallas Cowboys, and so I gotta hear this because I have a few listeners on the show. Matt, turn the ears up. Get your listening ears on because we're talking about your Dallas Cowboys and Shedeur Sanders going to the Dallas Cowboys. Why would he be a good fit for the Dallas Cowboys? I mean, they got Dak on this big contract that, I mean, it looks like they can't even get out of anytime soon without being in major cap hell. So I'm really intrigued to hear why the Dallas Cowboys came about on this one.
Yeah, I mean, his dad's obviously that's Dion's land, right? Like Jerry, familiarity, and I think he can still sit behind Dak for a year, right? You're still learning from Dak. The injury, you can never know when you're going to have to pop in and play, right? So now it's not Cooper Rush anymore. It could be Shedeur Sanders, you know, taking over the reins. Now I think this is like a slight, like I wouldn't put money on any of this. I wouldn't
No,
take it to the bank. So
no,
this is just
absolutely
something
not.
that I started thinking of who's kind of picking in that area, right? Dallas obviously should go Genty if he's there, right? Or even try to trade up. But again, I know that they're going to look to shop Dak Prescott. They're going to try to get a team to take over that contract, so they're going to try to get rid of him for cheap. Again, we talked earlier about kind of fun, kind of conspiracy things that are kind of lining up. Well, I think it's kind of lining up for this is uh, who better to take over the star than someone who obviously made a name playing in that area.
I like that. I know a lot of Cowboy fans may not agree with it, but you kind of really hit the nail on the head right there because Dion did play there. The familiarity, and Dallas needs something because Dak Prescott is not the answer. He should have not been re-signed to a big contract, but Jerry Jones lives in Jerry world, and Jerry's going to do what Jerry Jones wants to do, and he doesn't care if it's what's best for the team or not. He's going to do what Jerry Jones wants. And unfortunately for Cowboy fans, I've said it, since last season, back all the way back in September and October on the weekly episodes or the daily episodes back then, where I was making fun of Jerry Jones almost every single day of the show because he's just so easy to make fun of, and until he changes his ways or steps down or sells the team or whatever, the Cowboys are going to suffer. They're not going to win games. They're not going to win playoffs. They're not going to make it to the Super Bowl. And, it's probably going to be another 100 years before the Cowboys win one. So,
I can hope so. I mean, and I mean,
honestly,
nothing against
if
that.
the
It's just
Cowboys
Jerry's
and the
kind of
Chiefs never win another Super Bowl, I'd, oh, I'd be
yeah,
so
but
happy.
but this is a Jerry move, right? This brings so much attention to the Cowboys. If
Oh,
they were
yeah.
to make a pick like this, right? Then you have Dion and his guys coming to town each week. The celebrities are going to be coming in more and more and more. So
Hmm.
again, it makes too much sense, and it lines up.
Yeah, and you're seeing teams now not really care about their starting quarterback and their contract, right? I mean, you had
Yeah.
Denver with Russ, Jets with Rodgers, Falcons with Cousins. Like they know it's the
Well,
most important position in football. Like if we think we can get something better, teams seem like they're just going to do it. They'll
yeah.
suffer the year or two with the money and kind of deal with it. And I still think Dak's someone you could probably unload, get a little bit of draft capital. I mean, teams will probably pay for that. Um, I still like you got. I wouldn't take it to the bank or anything,
Right.
But it's kind of like that Roger Goodell thing, right? Where like dots just made sense, so you can kind of spin it up a little bit. Shedeur to the Cowboys, like there's enough dots to where it kind of makes sense, but still kind of unlikely type deal.
Right, absolutely. Man, well, that was well said. I think if you guys, I mean, I don't have anything else I really want to talk about tonight. If you guys have anything real quick, feel free to add it.
No, man, I just thank you for letting us come on the show. So the first time we've been a guest on someone else's show, so we'll definitely have to repay the favor and get you on
Yeah.
with us one of these nights. And again, this was really fun. It's nice
Oh,
being on the guest side, and I know the pressure you kind of have trying to run a show, but you've done great. I listened to a couple of your shows today, and you really do a great job. I was telling my brother earlier, just wanted to listen to a couple of your shows, get a cadence and kind of how your delivery and the
right.
speed and how you do things. So I know we kind of messed up your 2 minute drill, but that's
Yeah.
sorry. But
Hey,
we get to rambling sometimes, and just it happens.
I do the same thing. I'm gonna be honest, guys. I do the same thing. I didn't want to call it the 2 minute drill, like I wanted to incorporate call some way, and
Yeah.
people that listen to the show, they already know, but maybe you guys haven't heard the story. So the reason why it's Coll is my last name is Collins,
Hmm.
and I watch a lot of The Herd with Coward,
Hmm.
and he has The Herd, so his last name is incorporated into his show. And I was literally just sitting here one day, and my phone rang, and I was like, "Answer the call," but it's going to be Coll instead of Call, to incorporate my last name. Guys, this is Shovicks Sports. They're on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. Please go give these guys a follow. They're really good. They provide good content. They have a lot of guests on their shows. Their whole month of April, I think, is booked. So, but go give these guys a follow. See what you and show them the same love that you show me. That is all the time I have for today. I hope you've enjoyed the show and will join me next time. Leaving comments, letting me know your opinions about the topics of discussion today. Don't forget to follow across all social platforms: YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Answer the Coll, Coll. On Instagram, answer_the_call. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Share it with your friends and family. Just remember, if you want to talk ball, I will answer the call. All right. Hey, I really appreciate